All here, present and correct. Okay, this is our first FiReStarters session, Companies Improving the World. You know the drill. We have FiReStarters, a big part of every fire conference, and today we have our first 6 victims up on the stage. They're here to tell us who they are, what they do, and how they are companies which are improving the world. I'm sitting nearest to Corey, so Corey, maybe you could kick us off. Describe what you do, who you are, and what you're offering.
Sure. I'm Corey Lathan. I'm CEO of AnthroTronix. We're a biomedical engineering R&D company, but over the past 4 years, we've developed the Dana Brain Vital, which is a mobile medical app to screen for brain and behavioral health. And I have a quick question for you. How many of you have ever forgotten where your keys are or somebody's name? And if you don't all raise your hand, I'm going to call you a liar. Okay. So how do you know if that's normal, healthy, aging perhaps, or not normal? How do you know if you don't have early onset dementia? Well, the short answer is you don't know. Because every time we go into the doctor's office, they take your temperature, your blood pressure, your height, your weight. We obsessively track height and weight from the time you're born, but we do nothing to measure your brain and behavioral health. And that's critical to track over time if you really want to measure sensitive changes in case something happens, like you get a concussion or a depression, or you start a new medication, or you get dementia. So that's the problem that we're trying to tackle. We've developed an FDA-cleared mobile medical app, can go on any smartphone, and we're really trying to tackle this problem of brain and behavioral health.
An entirely new vision of medicine. I'd just like to bring in Nanotech Biomachines here. Will Martinez?
I'm right here.
Yeah, because, okay, explain what you're doing, because obviously we're in a similar field, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we are in the biomedical field, but what we are really doing as a company is we're disrupting in the biotech industry the way drugs are going to be discovered and developed in the next decades. We're bringing a new technology to this industry that will enable them to actually harvest, tackle diseases that are impossible to treat today. So that's what we're doing. And we're doing this with a nanoelectronic tool. If you're really going to look down into understanding differentiating molecules almost at the atomic scale, you need something that is as powerful, a tool that is as small that can look down at the atomic scale. So we have a tool that is based on a bioelectronic sensor on a Nobel Prize material called graphene. This is the machine. And this is what we call Nanotech Biomachines. So in the industry, we're known as Nanotech Bio, and look forward to talking to you today and tomorrow. I'll be around.
Ray Gibbs, tell us about Haydale. This is a slight change of direction here, but we've got to whistle through you all. Tell us about it.
Thank you, Ed. I thought that might happen. We don't deal with the single-layer sheets of graphene that Will does. Yeah. Standardization is an issue on definition of graphene. Everyone talks about it. We deal with what I call few-layered or graphene nanoplatelets, which is anything between 3 and 75 layers of graphene sheets. And 3 million of these are 1 millimeter thick. That's how small we're dealing. Haydale is a quoted company on the London Stock Exchange, very small, $25 million market cap, turning over around about 2.5 million today. And we've got an enabling technology solutions provider for provision of putting graphene sheets into composites and other materials.
And give us some applications.
Basically, we're looking at putting materials into thermosets, polyester. Okay, there's around about 7 million tons of polyester resin produced every year put into the marketplace. We've added some graphene nanoplatelets into that polyester. We've increased the mechanical performance of the resin per se by 3-fold, which means it becomes a mechanical improvement that the engineer can work with, and they can strip out layers of glass fiber and carbon fiber and still have the same performance. So we're looking to reduce between 15 and 20% of the polyester, if we get the whole world fine, over a lifetime, which is going to save an awful lot of carbon trucking stuff around the world.
So this is lightweight, strong materials you might put on the bottom of a boat.
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
Boats, We're doing some work on lightning strike as well with the conductivity from Airbus to remove the mesh, the copper mesh from aircraft.
Jay, Giraud, your Mojio. This is another change of pace, but we're talking about cars, and cars not only that we can instruct and talk to, but that end up talking back to us, which I find very exciting. And Jay's going to explain that.
Sure. Well, actually, why don't we talk about networks? We seem to have been on the theme of brains this morning and brain networks. And when you produce the internet and you've got all these computers, you can solve much more complex problems than you ever could when everybody was on their own individual computer. And obviously, the same is true for a brain, which is why it works so well. But that's not true for over 1 billion cars on the road. And fast forward 20, 25 years, we're going to have 2 billion cars on the road, driven every single day. And these are actually really powerful computers with between 150 and 400 sensors in each of them. It's extraordinary. It's far more sensors than your smartphone. And just think of all the things you can do with your smartphone, which is seemingly anything. So Mojio is connecting cars to the internet. We're activating the connected car economy with an open platform that's agnostic to all makes and models, all years of cars going back to 1996. Any code language you want to write in, and any carrier connectivity, it doesn't matter. So you can build an application or a service that can talk to any of 1 billion drivers today and their cars, and vastly change the way people interact with their cars and their transient environment.
What's a car going to say to you, Jay, that you need to know?
Well, judging by the audience, you might want it to say to you if your teenage son or daughter is driving too fast on weekends, not home at night, taking it across the border for some strange reason, or any of the above. But you can also have your car talk to your garage door, your house, your thermostat, your Evernote account, your smartwatch, so you can be notified if your car is being stolen or towed. And these are all interesting applications, but really what it's about is the networking of sensors for the big data opportunity that changes the way cars interact with their entire environment and as each other as self-driving cars over the next 5 to 10 years. So we have about 1,000 application developers building apps and services on our platform, many or most of which are all Fortune 500 companies in all the automotive verticals you know today.
James Hayward, DNA
Yes.
Sciences, tell us.
My name is Jim Hayward. I'm the CEO of Applied DNA Sciences. We are a publicly listed technology company on the NASDAQ. We utilize biotechnology at our core. And what we do is use the patterns embedded in DNA to interfere with the theft of intellectual property. We do it a number of different ways. We design and engineer DNA tags from botanical genomes and use those to mark original items. We tighten supply chains, and in tightening those supply chains, we eliminate counterfeit products and the invasion of counterfeit products into the legitimate supply chain. And we also fight crime. So we associate a criminal with the crime they have committed with a unique marker that designates location, time, and place.
Sorry, explain exactly how you would fight a crime then. You would, because this is a form of marker, you're labeling something, and
Yes.
you can therefore
Perhaps the
identify.
easiest is with the ATM. We have a significant market share of Europe. Europe has a different approach to ATMs. But with the cash in the ATM, we have a device, and in each ATM is a unique DNA marker designed for that location. In the event that the ATM is attacked one way or another, the electronic devices on the ATM detect that, coat all of the cash in the box before it's taken, and the DNA is then marked in such a way that the 52 police departments throughout the UK can recognize the mark. We've trained them all. When they come across the cash, they submit a sample to us. We can tell them exactly where the crime took place. For example, in a recent case, a criminal had a loose floorboard in his flat, and underneath was a box containing cash from 24 different ATM attacks. We were able to recognize each one of the ATM attacks. We've had 150 cases go before the Crown Prosecutor. Of those, 101 have been brought to trial, and of those 101, we have 100% convictions.
Okay, I think that qualifies as world-changing. Greg Schmergel, Nantero.
So everyone in this room uses and depends on a wide variety of electronic devices, whether it's your personal devices, your phone, your tablet, your laptop, or the servers and data centers that power the cloud, or your enterprise systems. And everyone also shares the same desire, which they express constantly, that you would like those devices to operate faster with lower power, so you have longer battery life or a lower power bill in your data center. And you would like to store even more data. Every year, people want to store even more data. They want to take more photos, higher resolution photos, more videos, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a huge need for more and more data storage. And that is what Nantero is doing, is providing the answer to those needs. And we're doing it through carbon. There's a little bit of a theme of carbon at the conference this year. And we're using carbon nanotubes, which are about 2 billionths, 2 nanometers in diameter, 2 billionths of a meter in diameter, so about 100,000 times smaller than a piece of your hair. And we use those to represent zeros and ones. We actually move them in and out of contact with each other to represent the zeros and ones. And that transition happens in picoseconds. It takes femtojoules of energy. So what that translates to in your pocket or in your data center is a very, very low power, very, very fast memory. And this is well beyond the concept or laboratory stage. We've been working on it since 2001, when my co-founder and CTO, Dr. Tom Rukas, invented it. Actually, that's when we started the company. He invented it before that. And we've now installed the carbon nanotube memory process in 7 production semiconductor factories around the world in several different countries. And we have about 17 major corporate partners that we're working on product development with, including a very high density multi-gigabit DDR4 compatible chip and a variety of other both standalone and embedded memory chips that are under development for release in the near future.
Great. As usual, guys, there is the mic in the middle. If you have any specific question for any one of the FiReStarters, please stand and deliver. I think we have one already. Yes, sir.
I'm going to get ahead of the game, and I apologize to my DNA component, but my curiosity is just running wild. We're very interested in protecting intellectual property. Some techniques that have been used have been to watermark the technology. And so when an adversary brings it forward, you can say, aha, it was ours originally. That's the FBI approach. You know, they went that way. There's not much we can do. I'm guessing that your DNA solution can operate at the ones and zeros level so that you can detect when that information is being exfiltrated from your system.
Yes, it's an excellent question.
Now, this is an unsolicited question. This is not an advertising gimmick.
Right.
Are you sure you can do that?
Yes. In fact, DNA in its pure essence is simply content. And you made the analogy already with binary code, zeros and ones. That's only 2 options per bit. DNA is quaternary. There are 4 options per bit, and that's if you're dealing with only single-stranded DNA. If you're dealing with double-stranded DNA, the options goes up, as does the density of the content. And that was brilliantly demonstrated by a Harvard and MIT professor, George Church, who encrypted the entire content of his 600-page book called Regenesis on Synthetic Biology into the cell of a single E. coli. Grew the E. coli on a dish. He likes to say, since there were 100 million cells on the dish, he's the most published author in America. Excuse me. But we can do the same kind of thing after slicing and dicing botanical DNA. We can encrypt in a mark that says this BMW has this VIN number. It belongs to so-and-so at this address. We can mark various parts across the automobile so that if recovered, it can be restored to the owner. If, unfortunately, it's been to a chop shop, all the components can be identified. You can apply that same technology to the marking of pharmaceutical products, marking 1 dose at a time, because the level of DNA used is 1 part per trillion. So there's not enough DNA to have any impact on form or function. That's less than the quantity, about a millionfold less than the quantity of DNA found in a typical pharmaceutic dose as well. So, so the detail, the content, it's why DNA is really the forensic gold standard in court.
Jay, just very quickly on the issue of security and hacking, which is always a hot theme here at FiRe. I mean, that must be a concern around cars, right? I mean, all of this intelligence. Are you feeling confident about the hack-proof ability of your product?
Well, so can cars be hacked? Yes. And obviously, many of you probably read the Wired magazine and a number of others in recent months. But can Mojio be hacked? The answer is no. And it's with the cloud, everything in the cloud is hackable. But can you take over control of a car with one of these in it? We just don't have the physical pin to communicate to the car. We can only read one way. So with Mojio, it's just not hackable.
Reassuring. Yes, please.
Sorry, just one question for AnthroTronix. You're going to be data mining, I'm assuming, some of this mined function data. Is that a correct assumption? So if somebody downloads the app, is using the app, are you going to try to data mine and use some of that information maybe for observational trials, things like that?
Sure. Let me clarify a little bit how the app is used. I mean, certainly the picture that you've painted is where we'd like to get to, but there's some problems. And just to back up on the data, you know, I personally generate more data in a day than my doctor sees in a year. So there's no doubt that we are all generating enough data to mine it to come up with quantitative signatures for each of us that could model our healthy aging. Or model depression, or model a concussion. So, but the problem is there's major barriers to using that data. FDA is a major one. So, and lots of areas around privacy and things like that. So, to answer your question, the way it's currently used, we actually developed it for the military because of their crises with concussion, PTSD, and depression. So it's only used locally right now to screen, to essentially reaction time tests on a local device that then are part of, again, the analogy I used as a brain thermometer. It's used as a diagnostic support tool to screen for that person's cognitive function, maybe over time if you have that data from the past. But it also can be sort of an instantaneous measure of cognitive processing speed and attention. So the vision is certainly to go big data, quantitative signature, but right now, because of a lot of other restrictions, we're local.
Yes, please.
Huge potential.
Yes, I have one question for 3 panelists each. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, good.
Make them quick.
So for James of Applied DNA Sciences, there's something I don't quite understand. Suppose I was interested in making sure nobody pirated or knocked off a Prada bag. Because my wife notices those things. We go to New York City and you see all those little bags. If there was a single DNA signature on a Prada bag, and maybe you can explain this to me, how is it someone couldn't just use PCR, polymerase chain reaction, and just replicate your DNA and put it in all sorts of phony bags?
Sure, I'd be happy to explain the armchair biochemistry after the event, I think. But perhaps the proof comes best in what the Department of Defense did before our first contract. What they did was hire Battelle Laboratories, who in turn subcontracted to all of the US national laboratories. And their challenge was to either move our mark onto a counterfeit item, copy it onto a counterfeit item, foil us in some way. They had 1 year. All of those laboratories. We provided 500 original marks to each. At the end of that year, 3 kernels arrived at the laboratory laden with boxes. In 3 hours, we were able to discriminate every single copy from our original, and 2 weeks later, we had our first military contract securing electronic microchips so that counterfeits don't invade the military supply chain. So just practically speaking, doesn't seem to be counterfeitable.
Thank you.
Your product bag is safe. Quickly, and one more.
Yeah, to Ray at Haydale. When you add the graphene sheets to a variety of materials, do you actually try to predict what the behavior is going to be? Do you try to do almost like a meta-material type of development or analysis?
That's a good question. We're still on a bit of a journey, really. The graphene nanoplatelets we use, they changed the rheology of the material that we're putting it into in the polyesters. We're seeing a thermal heat management process. The surface does not actually represent like a bit like an orange peel, so you're getting a very, very clever and stable surface. What we're finding is very, very, very low percentages make a real difference. The more you add, the worse it gets. So we're talking in terms of 0.01 of 1%, 0.051% of 1%. And it's that much that actually changes the whole characteristics of the material. The resin I talked about using our plasma process, it changed the gigapascal mechanicals from 3 to 13. So if you're looking to add that into a carbon fiber layup, you're actually going to get an ability to change the weight by about 15 to 20%. And that's really massive across the whole of the polyester world and the epoxy world as well, which is why we've got huntsmen crawling all over us wanting to team up.
May I ask one question of Jay?
Yeah, go on then.
Okay. So Jay, I know I could talk to your car and your car could talk to me. But I drive through LA and I often wonder, why don't all these cars talk to each other so the whole traffic flow is much more rational? So I just want you to talk to that.
Thank you. Well, with this, your car can talk to you and you can talk to your car through apps on your phone or on the web or anywhere. And that really does mean any of you with a Mojio device in any car you have, unless it's older than 96. So great point. And I think when we talk about networking, and I was using the brain analogy, we talk about self-driving cars and all of that. I'm talking about efficiency. If you double from 1 billion cars to 2 billion cars, how does the system work? How does it possibly maintain itself? So cars talking to cars directly certainly has the potential in, I'm going to say, the near term, 5 years or less, for that to be a very common reality through aftermarket devices brought into everyday cars. So we don't have to all wait for 20 years for the fleet of cars that you all own today to convert to new cars and for OEMs to pick a standard in order for that to happen, because we can get going now. And frankly, it won't happen if we don't populate today's existing fleet of vehicles, because it's just too big. So that's certainly a near-term reality with devices like this, using either cellular, so it's going device to cloud, back to another device to the car in front of you, or literally locally over Bluetooth or DSRC with Wi-Fi. How it gets there is not really relevant. It's really a question of speed. And the cell networks already, we're doing quarter-second response time between devices, from cloud to cloud, or device to device through the cloud. So certainly that's a very near-term reality. And on our platform, really anybody with that idea can get building apps that can be populated on millions of cars today.
Thank all of you.
A quick question for both our FiReStarters who are involved in the graphene trade. I mean, how much is the economics of this shaking down? It has been an issue around graphene, right? That it's an amazing material, it's an amazing property, it's got all kinds of applications. The issue is scaling it up industrially in a way that makes sense economically. Right.
Okay, I'll start. I spent 2.5 years working through a variety of material suppliers. We don't make graphene or graphene sheets. We buy the material in, and we start with fine powdered graphitic material, which the kids would know is basically your pencil lead going across the paper. It's cheap, actually. It's very cheap. CVD-based processes, which used elsewhere, more expensive. Samsung has spent $100 million trying to put reel-to-reel single-layer sheets of graphene together. Still struggling with that. We're here all to do the here and now and grow the pie slice, because at the moment the world is looking at graphene, and you're absolutely correct, there's a massive amount of hype. A lot of it's built by passion, but some of it's built by unreality. And you get a lot of researchers that come up with results and say, well, I've done all this. Okay, so what material did you use? Well, I bought it from Sigma Aldridge or something. Well, is it sustainable? Can you get it in quantity? If the answer is no, you've wasted your time. You really have wasted your time. And that's a real issue. So for me, putting it into the composite world, every there and now, all everyday common objects is really crucial. And we've all seen the commodity prices drop as a result of China, yes? and that's applied across the piece to the graphite world as well. And that means that the materials become far cheaper, more affordable, and therefore more able to put into the marketplace.
Right smile. Will Martinez, go on.
I'm Will. So let me just refresh your mind. So I wrote an article that was published in SNS, and it was called the Graphene Revolution, the Good, Bad, and Ugly. So let me deflate the hype on graphene for you right now, and let's touch ground. The market is less than $10 million. Who cares about it, right? Globally, it's been around. It's been selling for more than 5 years already. So for you that are familiar with this type of transition in materials, then the point really is, what is the real problem, the grand challenge that a material like graphene can solve? Until that problem is identified, there is no reason to be spending so much time and press about it. That's the reality. So we, as a company, we started as a provider of graphene. We started knocking on doors. We knocked on over 200 doors of academics, of industrial companies. And I think that what really changed and pivoted our company was the fact that we were in the Bay Area, that we had exposure to veterans in the biomedical industry that understood challenges with the discovery and development of therapeutics, and they pull us into that industry. And the test for any startup, good or bad, is go and talk to 20 customers. They will tell you, go home or stay here. And we found through that process that there's a significant need for properties that only graphene can provide in the biotech industry. That's why that's our home. And I cannot tell you exactly, very precisely what we do, because I respect competition more than anybody else. But I can tell you that in the next decades, you will see very, very promising 1 or 2 or 3 applications with graphene. It won't be more than 10, I can assure you that.
Okay, we heard it here. FiReStarters 1 have had their time, so there'll be more today and tomorrow. But thank you for now, all my FiReStarters. Thank you.